So I know I basically just covered Paul McBeth, but with the first European Pro Tour event that just happened this past weekend, there are some very interesting stats that I feel like I need to talk about. So in kind of an ironic fashion, with the Estonian Open this past week, we get Paul going from the US to Europe and the MVP of Estonia, Kristen Tatar, winning the Portland Open in the US. So a bit ironic in that manner. But what is more interesting here is the very bizarre play from Paul. I wouldn't say he played particularly bad, but he definitely played below what I believe is his skill ceiling. And I think it is a great example of how play can really deteriorate when you're not at your peak because you're in a very new environment with very different wind conditions, elevation changes, and you're just overall dealing with the entire stress that goes of being in a new country. You have to worry about transportation, food, everything involved with traveling, and being a professional athlete can be very tough even in your home country, let alone being in a bunch of different countries that is scattered throughout the European Pro Tour. So looking at Paul's first round, it was definitely a solid return to what I consider to be Paul's mean at the moment, 8 under with 9 birdies, putting him about 5th place, which is definitely decent, but the major concern here is the ratings of those players that he's playing against is much lower than that of the US. Now this could be a good reminder that ratings aren't really that important, especially in Europe where it's just a totally different scale. And while I do believe that is true, I definitely think that Paul should be on top for most of these events, even with a little bit of home field advantage from those top players. And looking at his round, he was making, if this is right, which I don't know that UDisc is always right, and especially if the people that are doing UDisc don't actually probably know the way it works, they marked him with 2 49-foot putts, 1 38-foot putt, and that was just in round 1. And with a 1031 rated round, I would say that's pretty close to where I see him being at the moment. But the real shocker was round 2, and this is something that I just don't foresee happening for the duration of the European Pro Tour, and that would be that his round rating ended up being 962 for round 2. Didn't really have blow up holes, just had a couple bogeys scattered throughout. But what is crazy about this round is, again, if the UDisc is right, which it may not be right, he threw 50% circle 2. Insane numbers, got 3 38-foot putts and a 49-footer, which sounds like a great round, like good job Paul. But he threw 77% from circle 1, and with a 1 under that put him way behind the rest of the pack. And if you know Paul, you know that his circle 1 percentages is probably one of his best stats ever, so to see him deteriorate is kind of shocking, but it only gets worse from here. And that would be because in round 3 he threw 60% from circle 1. I do not recall that ever being a thing. I know that Paul's putter has gotten a little bit more fluky as time goes on, and I think he definitely focuses on it a little bit less. In his final round, he had 2 OB throws with a double and a single bogey, putting him at 4 under on the round, much better than his second round with a 966, but still finished with a 986 rated round. These are just not numbers that you really ever see from Paul. He might drop a little bit here and there, but anything below 1,000 just is not the Paul that we expect to see, and a 60% circle 1 is just kind of shocking. Those are numbers that people in MA1 get. This is not stuff you expect to see from the GOAT himself. So this may be an anomaly. I don't really want to project too much because there's a lot left on the European Pro Tour. I think that this is his first foray into it, but definitely shocking to see him drift away from what I consider to be some pretty easy to win tournaments for him. And knowing his skill ceiling, I definitely foresee him winning a good chunk of these events. So to see him fall in 31st place on the European Pro Tour that is much less stacked is very shocking, but it definitely is a good reminder that Paul has a lot more going on than just disc golf. And it is a bummer that we might not get to see peak Paul for a while again. Maybe not even till like Worlds, or maybe not even till next year. It's hard to say. And maybe he's considering this just kind of like a fun thing to do on the weekends while he's in Europe. I don't really know his level of commitment to it, but knowing how competitive Paul is, I definitely think this might be eating away at him a little bit. And if you're jamming in 2 49-foot putts in your final round, then I think you're still giving it a pretty good go of it. And it makes me think that he still is trying. He just can't compete with how he used to be because he was practicing nonstop, and now he probably has a lot more commitments and can't get the practice rounds that he needs to be an elite level pro. But with that said, I really enjoyed getting to see the other players on the European Pro Tour, seeing how they throw, seeing the different types of disc golf being played. It was really cool to see. And I definitely think while I may not be a paying subscriber of the European Pro Tour, I will definitely be watching the live coverage that they get on the final day, especially with it being in English. I definitely think it is a great point of growth in the sport. So with that said, what do you guys think? Do you think that Paul is kind of drifting off a little bit? Or do you think this is just kind of an anomaly? I think he could definitely go either way, but let me know what you guys think. Also, I think it'll be a major reminder of how good he is when he kind of shows up at the European Open. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. Wild Runs signing out. Peace.
Every shot I had to put everything I had into it.